Thank you, sir, for giving us an overview on
Tulika, I'm
Natrax and how
audible?
crash barrier testing facility was set up in India since 2020. And yes, crash barrier testing facility in India will help in fulfilling the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat. We now
Hello.
have with us
Sagar, am
Mr.
I audible?
Michael.
Yeah, you're audible.
Mr. Michael
Okay, fine.
is retired on December 31, 2020
Uh,
as Executive Vice President of the International Road Federation, a position he assumed in February 2012. He has spent 35 years working to make roads safe around the world. He started his career as Energy Absorption Systems Incorporation, where he introduced the concept of crash cushions internationally. He later continued his quest to make roads safe with barrier systems, a Lindsay transportation safety company. He is recognized as one of the world's leading specialists on roadside, median, and work zone safety, promoting the concept of forgiving roads. He has conducted hundreds of road safety training seminars on roadside safety, work zone safety, vulnerable user safety, and road safety audit in over 70 years. He was co-chairman of the Transportation Research Board, Roadside Safety Subcommittee with international research activities for 18 years until 2019. He serves as co-chairman of United Nations Road Safety Collaboration, Decade of Action Pillar 2, Safety Roads and Mobility Project Group. In 2015, he received the TRB AFB 20 Roadside Safety Design Yanitz Lifetime Achievement Award. In 2020, the Puerto Rico Local Technical Assistance Program presented him with the 2020 Road Safety International Ambassador Award. He will be telling us about how tested roadside safety hardware can make India's roads more forgiving. Over to you, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Can you see my slides right now? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you very much for the introduction. By the way, that she said 70 years with 70 countries, I think, just so you know, make this presentation. So it's very important, as these days we have to start every presentation, every seminar with a COVID-19 update, because this has been something that's changed our lives. It's changed everybody around the world, changed our lives. We look at the numbers of people who have died. It's sad. It's an experience that we're all going to live through. We're going to make this happen. We're going to survive. Some of us won't. If you look at these numbers, and these are fairly recent, you know, you look, we've killed in the last 24 hours, about 8,000 people have died from this COVID. And we've had over 4 million people die around the world. Bright spot in every cloud. I want to keep believing this. And to me, for COVID, it's been the way the world has responded, how we've come together as a world, as a global community to fight this thing. And we're working together. We're all going around the area, the testing, the standards, the specifications. We're putting all these things together as a global community. And that's great. And you see, we closed Disneyland. That's unbelievable. We don't do that. So again, if you look at the numbers, it's frightening. But did you know that on a typical day, statistically speaking, about 3,700 people are killed every day on the roads. They're killed in a variety of ways: single vehicle crashes, people getting hit by cars, people on motorcycles, on bikes, cars hitting poles, cars hitting rigid objects, cars going down slopes, cars hitting another car. It goes on and on and again. 3,700 people. And it's not just 1 year, like we hope this COVID situation will be 1 year, maybe a year and a half. This has been going on every year for decades. So my question to you, where's the front page news? Everywhere you go around the world, all you hear about is COVID. It's on every TV channel, every newspaper. Where's the coordinated global response to what I refer to now as a forgotten pandemic? Road traffic injuries, that's a term we're using now. Road traffic injuries refers to fatalities and serious injuries. It's a forgotten pandemic. Now, the World Health Organization estimates 1,350,000 people die every year on the roads around the world. 1,350,000 people. That's a huge number. That's the equivalent of about 3,700 people a day, which is the equivalent to about 20 fully loaded 737 MAX airplanes crashing every day on the roads around the world. That's an amazing statement. It's something we just glossed over. We just accept it. Well, statistically speaking, during this 3-hour Natrax seminar, about 460 people who were alive when the seminar started will be dead. And that's frightening. In India, probably about 100 of those people will die on the roads in India. Sadly, could be your husband, your wife, your kids, your mother, your father, your best friend. You don't know. It's random, but it's going to happen for sure. We look at the numbers. The numbers are scary. They're frightening. So globally, again, 1,350,000 people dying, which is terrible. But in addition, another 20 to 50 million global injuries, serious injuries. So again, I go back and ask the question, where's the coordinated global effort to find this cure, to develop the vaccines, if you will, for this forgotten pandemic of carnage on our roads? You know, should we shut down Disneyland if a motorist crashes into a car on their way to Disneyland? And how bad of a driver do you have to be to still get into a crash on quarantine traffic? The closest thing we have to this coordinated global response has been something that is called the United Nations Decade of Road Safety, started back in 2011. It was on May 11th, 2011. We started this thing up. And there were 5 pillars: road safety management, road safety and mobility, safer vehicles, safer road users, post-crash response. I'm the co-chairman for pillar 2, safer roads and mobility. That's the infrastructure. And when we put this together back in 2011, we recognized that if we didn't do something, we would be killing over 2 million people by the year 2020. So our goal was to reduce that number by 50%. Take that number, that projected number, down by 50%. And in 2009, in a ministerial meeting over in Moscow, the banks, ironically, the banks were the guys who started this push, the multilateral development banks. They said, you got to do something. And the first people they called on were the World Health Organization. And at the time, I said, why would you go to WHO? Shouldn't they be concerned with these epidemics, you know, these SARS and AIDS and all these things that are killing all these people all around the world? That's what WHO should be doing. WHO's response is, yeah, you have an epidemic on your road. They recognized it back then in 2009. They said, if you don't do something, you're going to kill thousands and thousands and ultimately millions of people on the roads. Well, they going back to this number, 1,350,000. And I'm going to emphasize, this is not just for 1 year, it's a reoccurring event. Now, let me ask you a question, everybody from India. If there were vaccines for an epidemic that struck India not have a moral responsibility to their people to use these vaccines, even if they cost money? I don't think India is saying we're not going to treat the COVID-19 because the vaccine costs money. We don't do that. But sadly, when it comes to that forgotten pandemic of the road carnage, we are doing just that. We are building roads. This is an excerpt out of PARC's manual. They're saying we are building new roads. They're being built as unsafe. Why would you do that? Why would you create a culture where you have an epidemic, basically, to make it worse? According to IRAP, the International Road Assessment Program, 55% of the world's roads are 1 or 2 stars on a 5-star basis. Now, it's interesting, unlike COVID-19, we do have many vaccines. It's not just 2 or 3. Is India, my point today, is India aware of these vaccines? Using these vaccines. The fact that Natrax has stepped up and developed this testing facility is a huge step forward and helps me answer the question. I think you are aware of them. I don't think you're using them. Because too often when I talk to a road authority, I've been doing this for over 35 years, I talk to them about a vaccine, something that's been around for 20, 25 years, and they say, wow, I didn't know about that. Never heard about that before. Well, I'm here to tell you something. This decade of action we started back in 2011, it failed. It failed. I'm sorry to say. Statistics don't lie. And if you look at the numbers, we were killing 1,240,000 people back in 2010. As I said before, right now we're killing 1,350,000 people. That's not acceptable. We also know, this is interesting, if you look, medical science has done some amazing things. medical science is keeping us alive longer and longer. They're getting rid of a lot of these serious diseases. In fact, they're saying that there's a good chance people are going to start to live over 110 years old. Somebody's going to be 120, 130. It's going to happen. Not me, but some of you. You're going to live to be over 100. They're saying 50% of the babies born in the Western countries live to be over 100 years old, and the first person to live to be 150 is alive today. For sure, Dr. Ali, it's not you, it's not me, but it's somebody, because that's medical science has done great things. So look what's happening now. Those road injuries, the fatal crashes. We are the #1 cause of death for ages 5 to 29. If that doesn't get your attention, what does? But we haven't responded. WHO recognizes we got a serious problem here. And when I go to Pillar 2, again, which is my concern, I recognize that I look at some of the crashes out on the road, that about 90% of those crashes, 90% of those crashes or excuse me, 80% of those deaths, 80% of the deaths are in lower and middle income countries. Think about that. And if you look at this chart, it's showing in the lower and the middle income countries, the number of deaths are going up on the roads. In the other countries, some of the middle countries and higher countries, the numbers are going down. Why? Very simple. In those higher income countries, they are using the vaccines. India is considered a middle income country. And I want to make sure that India understands we do have these road safety vaccines. And webinars like this are going to help to make sure you know about them. So some of those vaccines are available, they're being used, some are, some not. But the question I'll ask again, why is India not using the road safety vaccines? I said that decade of action was a failure. That's from 2000, the first decade of action. But one thing it did achieve, we started to raise awareness. I don't think without that decade of action, Natrax would be developing a crash test facility. That road to awareness is really important, because in this road safety world, you're gonna encounter many failures. But I love this quote by Maya Angelou. She said, "You're gonna encounter many defeats, but you must never be defeated." Believe me, in 35 years of doing this in this industry, I've been at many defeats. So if we look forward for road safety in India, what's going to happen next? Well, we got to make safety first. That's got to be the focus as we go forward. In a ministerial meeting, the third ministerial meeting that we had in Stockholm in February of 2020, the last international meeting I attended, we did create the second decade of action for road safety. Went to the United Nations. The United Nations decreed, that's good, the General Assembly, and they said, now we're going to reduce fatalities by 50% from 2021 to 2030. And you sit and go, oh man, 50%, that's an astronomical number. But 50% over a 10-year period works out to about 7 to 8% fatalities reduction a year. 7 to 8%, you can do that. And how are you going to do it? Well, the recommendations coming out of Stockholm, there were 9 recommendations. And what I found interesting reviewing these recommendations, every single one of them talked about managing speed. Every single one. And my friend, Dr. Craig Milligan out of Canada, he says road safety is as simple as controlling kinetic energy. You just manage kinetic energy. Is that V squared, velocity squared. If you can control this one, you can bring down the number of serious crashes and fatalities. We know that about a 1% increase in speed is going to increase fatalities by about 4%. So if I look at these recommendations, I'm not going to go through them. You get a copy of this presentation if you want it. You're going to see these are the recommendations coming out of Stockholm. Every single one is going to refer to speed in some way, shape, or form. So what's the plan? Is India going to be a part of this plan? Well, the global plan of action that was developed and accepted by the United Nations Decade of Action, there's a major shift focus. Prior to this, in that first decade of action, we focused on 1,350,000 people dying. Now we're saying we also need to do something about these serious injuries. And we're starting to call that term now, you're starting to hear the word road traffic injuries. Serious, the fatalities as well as serious injuries. And again, these are the performance targets that have been established. I'm not going to go through them now. Understand these are out there. They do exist, and the focus is on safety first. But I want to go back and say to you, what else can you do in India? Especially as it relates to my baby, the infrastructure, safer roads and mobility. Again, I've got to take a hit for some of that failure that we had in the first 10 years. I'm co-chairman of this subcommittee of this pillar. Well, in pillar 2, we're recommending the implementation of something called the safe system approach. I don't know how many you're familiar with it, but it's an outgrowth of Vision Zero that came out of Sweden, Towards Zero Deaths that came out of the US. Safe system approach came out of Australia. And it's a very, very effective program. It focuses on something called forgiving roads, safer vehicles, and lower speed limits. So we'll look at each of these. And I know what a lot of you are thinking right now. Come on, Mike. 95% of the cause of all the crashes, it's human errors. We just got to control the human being. We got to control the human being. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it right now. Accept the fact that human road users are going to make mistakes. This is a big principle in the safe system approach. Safe system approach is accept that fact. You're going to make mistakes. And now we know, looking at the road and looking at the safe system approach, people will make mistakes, but they should not die for that mistake. And then we know that instead about 95% of maybe the crashes are 95% human error, that could be. But 33% of the time, the people died because of a road condition deficiency. Either the road was improperly designed, installed, or maintained. So about a third of the time, and those are the ones that we can correct. Those are the needless death that we can do something about as a community. So if I look at the safe system, we talk about 5-star drivers and pedestrians, education, training, critical, enforcement, extremely important. How about India? How are you doing in those for education and enforcement? 5-star vehicles, something called the new car assessment program. We're crashing cars. Germany accredited about a 40% reduction in the fatalities on their roads to the vehicle improvements. How about India? How are you doing on that one? In the last 5-car speed limits, we know the body can only withstand a certain amount of force. That's that velocity squared. Well, we know in a head-on crash, maybe 70 kilometers an hour, a motorcycle about 30 kilometers, 50 kilometers in an intersection, run off the roads, 40 to 50. Pedestrian crashes about 30 kilometers an hour. This is an interesting chart. It shows that about 20 miles an hour, 30 kilometers an hour, you impact a pedestrian, it's only about a 10% chance of killing them. Double that now to about 64 kilometers an hour, and that number is going to jump to 90%. So why would you have roads with pedestrians walking next to them with speed limits, anything over 30 kilometers an hour? No, doesn't make sense, right? 20 miles an hour is plenty. We're seeing this around the world. People going to the 20 mile an hour or the 30 kilometer an hour in these locations where there's pedestrians close to the road. We're seeing it again and again and again. How about India? And you tell me. The last part of this is 5-star roads, as we talk about this, and this is that forgiving roads. Accept the fact that people will make the mistakes and forgive them for their mistakes. There's a great quote that the minister from South Africa made at one of our United Nations meetings where he said, sometimes the living close the eyes of the dead, and sometimes the dead open the eyes of the living. Open your eyes. Open your eyes. India, you need to open your eyes. There are enough people killed on the roads. And again, this Natrax is going to help you to come up with some of the solutions to eliminate some of that needless death. You have a shared responsibility between the roads, the vehicles, post-crash response, the education, the enforcement. They all work together. And we got to take responsibility for our actions. So we understand, looking at a road, a lot of people now want to move back into the cities. We're seeing these megapolises be created. And there's only so much room to put the roads. You're going to tunnel down, you're going to layer up, but you're going to make a more sophisticated design. You're going to have more and more of these kind of locations. Everybody kind of familiar with that? You know what that feature, the term that we use in engineers, term, where the road kind of splits off? We refer to that as a gore area. I find it's an interesting term because in other places you might hear that word being used. Gore is at a bullfight, where the matador, gets gored by the bull and gores them. And that's terrible. That's going to hurt and that's going to leave a mark. Yeah, well, unfortunately, we don't have bulls on the road, but we have situations like this in the gore area. This happens to be in Kuwait, where it's a single vehicle car crashed into that improperly designed gore area and killed 2 people. They died needless death. This is a video. This is in Thailand. You see his bus, there's 8 people on board. This is October 31st, about 3 years ago. All those people are fine right now, they're all dead. Because somebody said that was acceptable, to take the end and turn it down. It's not. And it doesn't matter where I go around the world, the United States, Canada, Europe, South America, this happens to be Brazil, Australia, anywhere in Asia, anywhere in Africa, I'm in the Middle East, I'm seeing these things out on the road. And somebody said this is acceptable. Somebody put this in the standards or specifications. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? It's not acceptable. And again, I guarantee you, somebody says China, somebody says these things, somebody has died, and we haven't opened our eyes. And I don't know why. But we need to wake up and open our eyes and understand this is unacceptable. People are going to make mistakes. And unfortunately, at these locations where someone is going to make a mistake, this is how you find out about it. The flowers up on the side. If you don't have these properly treated, this is a tunnel in Austria. This is a toll plaza up in Norway. This is a guardrail. This is a road in Germany. And again, this is a road between Dubai and Abu Dhabi in the Middle East. It doesn't matter. People keep sending me these photographs. Don't send me anymore. I've got plenty. I've got more than a lifetime of photographs of crashes where somebody died a needless death. Single vehicle, non-pedestrian. Car ran off the road. The road was not properly designed, installed, or maintained, and somebody died a needless death. And these are the ones that we need to work together to stop. And we can. That's a really young me on the picture on top of that car about 100 years ago, looking at a crash over in Europe and going back in and saying, you know what, here's the reason this happened. And then coming back later, 6 months, 7 months later, and finding out they didn't do anything about it. Told them what to do, didn't do a thing. The only thing that's different now is another 3, 4, 5 people died at that location. So I go back to this quote. About 30% of those road traffic injuries are going to be single vehicle, non-pedestrian crashes, a run off the road crash. So what can be done to make the Indian medians and roadside safe for all road users? That's kind of the question for pillar 2, right? Remember I talked about this. Well, I'm going to suggest you start by yielding to common sense. I'm convinced if you have common sense and a little creativity, you're going to make your road safe. I'm a strong believer that if necessity is the mother of all invention, then creativity is the father. The tricky thing, though, is being creative takes courage. I'll give you an example. Let's say we design, instead of building a road, we're going to build a condominium building. And we get our money together and we go out to somewhere along the ocean, beautiful condominium building. It's going to be great, 25, 30 stories up. And we design it. We're going to put nice balconies hanging off each one. If somebody comes along and says, hey, Mike, you got a problem here. These things are getting too expensive. You need to cut back on cost. You need to cut back costs. And somebody said, I got an idea. Do we really need to have a railing on those balconies? You know, if we take that railing off, we're going to save some money. And I know we'll do something. You know, we'll put a sign out there, you know, warning people, you know, be aware of the balconies at a ground level. We'll tell people don't drink when you go out there, and geez, for God's sake, don't let your kids go out there and don't get distracted by the kids. If you're tired, don't go out there. You can't do that, can you? You're not allowed to do that. We wouldn't be allowed to do that. And the rules are basically when you're building a building, if it's not safe, don't do it. Why then do we allow people to walk right next to the roads with high-speed roads with trucks? Why then do we allow, this happens to be in China, kids walking along a car. This is right after I took this picture, a car came down, all these kids went off to the side. Why is it we put things like this out on our roads that are spearing cars, and these are in your standards and you're allowing it to be done? Why? Why do you have a turn down end and the end of a concrete or a steel barrier, knowing it'll ramp a car, it'll send the car flying? Why? Where's the common sense? It's not safe. And then you say, well, Mike, we understand that. Well, I'm telling you, you got cars driving right next to each other in some places in opposite directions, and you put a little pier, like little curb up like this. That's not going to work. You're going to kill somebody. And sadly, this is a situation a couple of years ago, just start a school down in Ecuador. You know, a friend sent me this picture and see they're pulling that kid out of the backseat of the car. His mother died driving him to school that day, the first day of school, when it hit by that truck. Then he said, well, Mike, we'll put a little yellow stripe out there that'll warn people it's dangerous. You happy now? Can I get rid of that darn banister railing? I'll do that. What do you think? Think you can? No. But do you do that on the roads? Yeah, we don't bother to put a barrier out there. Just put that out there. Are you nuts? You know, and next thing, this balcony railings, you don't just put any kind of material up for a balcony railing. It's going to have to be properly designed, rigidly tested, and manufactured using some kind of very, very significant, stringent quality processes. Roadside safety hardware is exactly the same. You've got to have that rigid testing criteria and be manufactured using a quality process. You have to do it. When I look at some of the examples of things that are out on the road, this has never been tested. I don't know what would happen. No clue what's going to happen. This has never been tested. And for God's sakes, please, 2 things on my tombstone I want to put: end turn down ends, number 1. And number 2, stop the gaps. Why would you allow gaps like this in a work zone with sections of concrete? Just take big rocks and put them out there then. This has never been tested. I'm not going to get taken off on it, but in basic terms, if a product is not tested, then don't use it. It'd be sort of like we go up on an airplane and I hand you a parachute and they say, hey, we're going to jump out now. Here's your parachute. You know, I never tested this parachute. Not sure it's going to work, because sadly, you're not going to find out until you need it. That's the whole reason Natrax is developing testing criteria and putting this out there. And I congratulate and commend you tremendously for doing this. So again, let's go another step further. We design it, we put it in as properly, but you got to install it correctly, right? You can't just throw a balcony up there if it's not properly installed. What's going to happen? Well, probably bad things can happen. Same situation with roads. You know, we see some guardrail. This is done in Chile. It's installed backwards. You know, here's another one. I love this slide. They had to actually they had to figure out how to put the guardrail through the tree. Here's another one. This is a road rally over in Europe. And again, this is a very good portable steel barrier, but it's not installed. It's not properly connected. That's not the barrier's fault. That was a good barrier. If the rail gets broken, we have to go out and fix it right away so the dog or the kids don't run off it. Same thing for road safety products. You got to go out, you got to maintain the products, you got to make sure when they do get hit that you do fix them and you put them back in condition. That's the only way we're going to eliminate those needless deaths, by taking responsibility for our actions. Yield to common sense. Federal Highway Administration has come out, and again, as part of Pillar 2, they said, what we need to do, there's our strategic approach. Number 1, keep the vehicles on the road. If they do go off the road, make sure they can safely recover. And number 3, if they hit something, reduce the severity. So what can we do? Well, keeping vehicles on the road, the drop off of the roads can be steep. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but understand there are things you can put on there, something called safety edge. Very simple. Allow the vehicle to get back up on the road. Very simple. Rumble strips. Warn people on the side of the road or the middle of the road. This is in Norway. You see there's a rumble strip in the middle of the road. This guy goes over and woke him up. Got him back on the road. No crashes. That's good. High friction surface materials are great, keeping you on the road. Proper vertical signage, proper horizontal delineation. Smarter vehicles. The vehicles we have, maybe your grandkids will be driving. You're not going to be able to leave the road. So they'll keep you on the road. But how about existing roadside hazards? What do you do with those that are out there? Now we talk about safe recovery. We're talking about something called AASHTO. Familiar with Association State Highway Transportation Officials? If you're in Europe, maybe in AASHTO has something called the Roadside Design Guide. If I'm in Europe, they got something called RISER, and the Roadside Infrastructure for Safer Roads. They both say the same thing. You got a rigid object located close to the road. The best thing to do is eliminate it. Get rid of it. And if you're in the design stage, maybe that's not a big deal. But on an existing road, it might be really expensive, maybe impossible. So again, the best solution is to eliminate that hazard if I can. If I can't eliminate it, can I move that hazard further away from the road? Create a big, what we call a clear zone. Allow the vehicle to get back up on the road safely, creating that clear zone. I can't eliminate it. I can't move it. Can I modify that hazard somehow to make the impact into it less severe? And again, this a lot of time post comes in this, poles that are located close to the road. Poles located close to the road, they need to be there so we can read them. Sadly, people are hitting those poles and they are dying. Where there's testing that's been done, product has been developed, we know how dangerous that can be. There are products now being developed like these collapsible poles, using wood, drilling some holes on the bottom, using omnidirectional coupling devices like this one. All these things are being developed to modify the hazard to make it less rigid, to allow a vehicle to pass through. It all makes sense. So I go through these steps, and it's really important to go through each steps because a lot of times the design engineers don't. They immediately jump to this one, which is the fourth one. So ideally, we go through to eliminate it. Can we move it? Can we modify it? Then we go to the fourth one, which is shield that hazard, not protect the hazard, shield the hazard with a barrier or a crash cushion. We talk about barriers, and again, we're talking a lot about barriers today, where they're used, the side of the road, the middle of the road, temporary barriers. And there's different types of barriers classified by how much they deflect when they get hit. Rigid, semi-rigid, flexible. Well, again, go back. If those are not properly tested, don't use them. Testing criteria, there's two globally recognized. We've heard a little bit about this. Europe, EN 1317, United States, something called NCHRP 350, now replaced by the Manual for Assessing Safety Hardware, MASH. Well, again, this is Europe, what they have, and I can spend a lot of time going through this. You got some experts, and Sagar and others are doing a great job with this. In the United States, this has come a long way since 1962. If you look at the first circular in 1962, consisted of about 1 page. MASH, about 277 pages. Those are the recognized one. South Korea also has a testing facilities, and they have their own testing criteria based on the 85th percentile of their vehicle fleet. That's fine. That's fine, and they can use their product in Korea. But it's interesting, maybe the most dangerous part of these barriers are the ends. Longitudinal barriers have two ends, downstream, upstream. The downstream, when I'm attaching two different types of barriers with different deflection characteristics, I need to add something called a transition. If I don't, the guardrail is going to stop. I'm going to take the car right into the rigid end. So that's the downstream end. The other side, the upstream end, I need to add a terminal that can redirect, be strong enough to redirect the vehicle, anchor it, redirect it on an impact, but also soft enough to go away when it's hit on the end. Well, again, there's a lot of these out there. You talked about them. I don't think they're being used in India. These are the vaccines. You got to start using them because you're not using enough of them now. And then the other thing, if it's not a barrier, it's a crash cushion. And again, it's a crash cushion. A lot of times I compare it to a parachute. Jump on an airplane with no parachute, you come down real fast, hit the ground, break every bone in your body, you die. On a parachute, come down real slow. If I hit a rigid, and sometimes they're called impact attenuators. Attenuate just means to reduce the severity. Again, jump out of the airplane, no. It's like hitting a concrete barrier. You're going to die. You're going to die. It's going to be very high impact. And I'm taking all that energy and crushing it in a short period of time. But if I put on the parachute, I extend the time of the event. Same thing by putting this crash cushion out in front of the hazard. I extend the time of the event. I still have that same energy, but now I've extended it over time. People can survive it, and they're going to walk away from something that otherwise would have killed them. So again, you're not using enough crash cushions in India. There's thousands of these, been around since the late 1960s. Why they're not mandated in India, I don't know. To my knowledge, this is one of the first impacts crash cushions installed in 2013 in India. Don't know how many more have gone in there, but there should be tens of thousands, and they should be mandated in every new road, in every existing road. The road safety audit should be out there mandating these. So in summary, one of our presidents had a great statement. John F. Kennedy said, it's not our wealth that built the roads in the United States, but it's the roads that built our wealth. It's going to be the same exact situation in India. You've got to have that strong infrastructure, and it's got to be safe. Because you look at what you're putting out there, understand you're going to have a challenge. You know, these roads can be extremely dangerous, and this exists everywhere in the world. But I need to have you understand something. You know, there's a cost for not fixing these as well. The cost for fatality is about 70 times the gross national product per capita. That's the accepted society value for a crash, a fatality. So you look at India, you know, using the per capita gross national product of $1,680, that's about 8 million Indian rupees on a typical fatality on the road. Where else could you use that money? You know, so you look and you say, well, nobody's hit that one yet, Mike. I know it doesn't look good, but sooner or later somebody will, and the results are going to be fatal. If you got a bad stomach, I want you to close your eyes for a second, but I just want you to understand this is not a game. This is a guardrail crash. It's not a game. We need to open our eyes. Great quote by Einstein. Insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. As he said, if you do what you've always did, you're going to get what you always got. That's what you're getting in India right now. Now we're changing that. We're changing the culture. You are changing your culture. You're taking responsibility. You're understanding what the road vaccines are. You're understanding that if that product's not properly tested and proven, you don't use it. Because again, these tested roadside products will save lives. Yeah. You know, people always ask me, they say, Mike, okay, we understand, you know, we need to understand these products, understand what's available, what's being manufactured locally, how do they work? But then they say to me, but Mike, I just got a new responsibility. I got this new job and I'm responsible now for doing something on my road. What can I do? I got a hazardous situation. I always say the same thing. You got three options. First one's real simple. It's on my three hopes. First one, that's it right there. Just close your eyes. Close your eyes and do absolutely nothing. Now, what do you hope? You hope nobody hits it. Or you hope the person that hits it is not your wife or your mom, your dad. How do you live with yourself knowing you could have done something? Option two, hope number two, something out there. Heck, something's better than nothing. Is it really better than nothing to just throw something out on the road? It's never been tested. I'm here to tell you it's not. It's absolutely not. You might be making the situation worse by extending that hazard into the driver's decision area. This is down in Argentina. They just took a couple of barrels, wrapped it around a pole, tied it up there, and they actually took away the driver's decision area and made it more dangerous. And the third option or third hope is really simple. Take responsibility for your actions. Make sure that you understand the situation. Make sure you understand the site. Make sure you understand the site conditions, and then understand what is possible, what can be done, what products are available, what technologies, what concepts. And then you go out and you install one of them. It's pretty simple. Now, what do you hope? Ironically, you hope somebody crashes into it. You know why? There's a chance somebody knocks on your door with a husband and a wife, two little kids, and the guy says, you know, I was driving home last night and I fell asleep and I hit that thing. They say, you're responsible for it being there. I hit that barrier that's I know has been tested. You're responsible for it being there. I just want to shake your hand and thank you for saving my life. How many occupations are going to give you that privilege? Doctors, policemen, firemen, road traffic engineers. Just do your job. Take responsibility. Be proud of what you do. Do it right. Do it right the first time. Don't put product out there that may not work. Look at your standards. Could it be your standards are wrong? Would you go out and spell stop that way? Because it's just said to do it, or would you spell left that way because that's what it said to do, or school? And for God's sake, drive carefully. I love this slide down in Australia, going in this little town. It says, drive carefully. We got 2 cemeteries, no hospital. So the vision zero, as we go forward, something my dad used to always tell me. He said, Mike, when you die, you want people at your funeral saying you made wise choices in your life. To make wise choices, you need 2 things. Knowledge. You never stop learning. You learn something new every day. And number 2, prudence. You use that knowledge. Well, again, IRF, where I worked for 13 years, again, does some great jobs at the training. There is one coming up. And if contact me, I sent you my email address on the chat. I can help you get a discount for this. If you're interested, this is coming up pretty soon. It's 2 hours a day. It's spread over a 3-week period. So again, and it's video, it's recorded, so you can watch it if you want to, if the timing is not convenient for you. So keeping in mind, even if you learn something, if you don't use it, it's of absolutely no value. So in road safety, and we're all in this together, you wouldn't be in at this conference, you weren't concerned about road safety. I'm here to tell you, no more white flags, no more. And understand another great Einstein quote, he said, the world's a dangerous place, not because of the people doing the evil, but because of everybody else who's looking on and doing nothing. Are you one of those people who's looking on figuring it's somebody else's responsibility? You got to believe one person can make a difference and every person should try. Remember these two words, no regrets. If you go through life as a road safety person, you don't want to pick up the newspaper and read and say, yeah, geez, yeah, I see where they died. Yeah, I see why they did. I think we probably could have done something. And I'll close with this statement. If something's important to you, you'll find a way. If it's not important, you'll find an excuse. Excuses are the tools of the incompetent. Being in this industry for 35 years, I think I've heard them all. I've heard them all from no money. It's not in our standards. We didn't know about it. No more excuses. Stop making excuses and start making changes. Ask yourself, if it's not you, then who? If it's not today that you start, and you got great start over here in Natrax getting you to the facility, then when? And I love this quote. You can be the reason someone gets home safely tonight. Best gift that you can give somebody's family is to get them home safely tonight. Find a way. Find a way. Find a way. Any questions? That's my email address. Contact me, serious about that IRF training. If you want some help trying to get the cost down, let me know. I still have some friends there. Maybe I can do something to help you out. Anything regarding road safety. You've got people like Dr. Ali, you've got myself, you've got our email addresses. We want you to contact us, and we are hoping that you do. And we're looking forward to hearing from you and working with you to make the road safe in India. Keep in mind, find a way. There's nothing more important than saving somebody's life. Somebody say, well, the Europeans are doing it, the Americans. Does that mean that an American life or a European life is more valuable than an Indian life? No, absolutely not. I want to think the reason things haven't happened in India faster is you're just not aware of it. And that's going to happen now as we go forward. So again, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you very, very much. Dr. Karupaya, thank you very much, and keep up the good work. I look forward to what we can do to help you with in the future.
Thank you,
Back
Mike.
to you.
Thank you so much. It was a very elaborative presentation, started from the technical aspect and ended with the emotional aspect. And I'm sure that the attendee who are attended this presentation, they will come up with a new idea. And the main concept of the presentation, which was making Indian roads more forgiving, that will drive down to the road infrastructure in a very systematic way. And the people will think from the government, from the manufacturer, from the research perspective, that how Indian roads will be making more safer. So thank you. The presentation was were more elaborative. I appreciate the effort made so far. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would now request Mr. Jayanta Chakrabarti. I would now request Mr. Jayanta